In today's video, I am going to share reasons why to save sex for marriage. Now, I know you might be thinking, why on earth would I not have sex before marriage? Well, great question. See, the world sends us different messages about sex, whether we realize it or not. Through movies, social media, the pornography industry, it's all feeding us a message that we ultimately end up adopting and living out in our lives. And if we don't critically think about it, we just almost become robots to what the world is telling us to believe. Now, before we jump in, if you are new here, my name is Allie Valentin, and I love a good, honest, real conversation on the internet about life, marriage, relationships, and womanhood. And so today, I am thoroughly excited to have this conversation with you. I wished that I knew this information from the get-go. I need to pause here. The reality is, I grew up in the church. I grew up as a Christian, going to Christian schools and in a Christian home. And if you've grown up in a religious environment, then you have probably also been fed the message that you should just save sex for marriage. Now, the church hasn't always gotten this right. We haven't always done a good job at sharing this message with the church, let alone the world. So when it came to my teenage years and this message was being shared with me, I remember grappling with the idea of, well, I should do this, but why? So in today's video, I'm going to share a little bit of the why behind why I decided to save myself for marriage. Now I want to pause here and say, this topic can often become politicized. Human sexuality is one of the pressing moral questions of our day and age. I am not an expert, nor am I going to pretend to know all the right answers, but I went on a bit of a personal journey as I was trying to figure out why I wanted to save myself for marriage. I'm also not here today to say that if for some reason you have been a victim of sexual abuse or you have simply just decided to have sex before marriage, that you've gotten it all wrong, sin of all sins, shame on you. No, this video is simply just to provide facts for people that are desiring to know more. So let's jump in. See, our generation has grown up in the aftermath of the 1960s, where the sexual revolution was birthed, where basically the beginning of monogamous families and single-family households began to shatter in the name of freedom and self-expression and happiness. What seemed to be the liberation of sexuality was the catalyst to the birth control, abortion, and the decline in marriage. It all was in the name of own personal happiness, that you could have multiple different partners, sexual partners. You don't have to get married. You don't actually have to have the baby. And all was supposed to be for our own liberation. But actually what we have found is that since the 1960s, the general happiness of people has continually declined. Now, I know, before you just fire at me, I know you can't make a simple correlation between this and that. But I think it's interesting that this is a major factor of things that society has faced over the last several generations. This simply struck my curiosity as we have begun to see that a one-person sexual relationship that you have for a lifetime began to decline. What actually happened to people's general well-being? Well, we've seen that when somebody actually isn't loyal to a single family, they actually don't feel as happy. And actually, their own children experience the devastation of that. As there began to be a decline in marriage, there began to be many relationships that actually would just cohabit together. But we found that when couples would just cohabit, meaning they lived together without being married, there was less likely of a chance that they would ever get married, a more likely chance that if they got married, they would end up divorced, and ultimately down the line, they would develop trust issues within not just that relationship, but the other relationships in their life. So if cohabiting with somebody is more likely to lead to unhealthy relationships and break apart a family structure, what does that do to the next generation? Well, we have found that the generation in which we're living in, where a large number of children have experienced divorce in their homes, actually have experienced a level of trauma regardless of what age they were when their parents divorced. It's very likely that the reason that many adults in society today cannot form healthy relationships and lack the secure attachments that they need for adult relationships is due to the fact that they experienced divorce in their home when they were younger. Now, I know this is a broad statement. This doesn't apply to everybody, but this is what research has found. Ultimately, your choice to just cohabit with different people or have multiple sexual partners in your lifetime could truly affect the next generation. It's not a choice that simply affects you. It actually affects the world around you as well. This is a reason to take into consideration how many sexual partners you actually want to have in your lifetime and why you're choosing to have sex with them. See, beyond the sort of messy relational dynamics that can happen because of the insecure attachments or the separation that might happen after cohabiting with somebody, there's also the very scientific hormonal chemical reaction that happens in our body when we have sex with somebody. Both oxytocin and vasopressin are released in our body when we have sex with somebody. These are bonding hormones. They bond and connect you with another person. The more sexual partners you have, the less capacity you have to actually form intimate relationships. Basically, the more times that bond is created and ripped apart, the weaker the link is that can form between you and other relationships in your life. It's obvious that we have not been created to just flippantly have sex with just anybody, even if that's what hookup culture has told us. Even if we've been told by society that sex is simply for happiness and pleasure, it obviously does more than just provide us pleasure. It connects us to another human being. This is often why people, after breaking up with somebody that they've had sex with, experience these sort of strange dreams with that person in them or are constantly wondering about the person. It's because they've formed emotional attachments that are incredibly hard to break. Because sex has been created to be a bonding experience between a man and a woman. Now, beyond the bonding that is created with another person is the reality that if you are having sex with somebody outside of marriage, there's an underlying likelihood that you are actually experiencing a level of anxiety about this part of your relationship. Because the reality is, you don't know for certain if the person is very serious about committing to you forever. This leaves you with the question in the back of your mind of, can I really give all of me to this person, or can I receive all of the other person and know and be at peace that there won't be a separation and that I won't have to live with the anxiety of knowing that I've given more to myself to somebody than I actually wanted? When we create those bonds with somebody and we begin to grow a sexual relationship with them, it's often that our emotions get involved and we actually cannot see the relationship clearly. We can't make clear and clean judgments and have clean and clear discernment about the relationship because this sexual part of us is also emotional. You cannot detach the two. The beautiful thing about saving sex for marriage is that you can save this part of yourself for one person. Not only is that a gift to the person, right? You're not coming into the relationship with all this sexual history. You are also giving yourself the gift of not having to be in moments with somebody that you love dearly, having a sexual experience with them that is being compared to another person, or having memories pop up in your mind, or carrying this thought of expectation of, is it gonna be like the rest? See, I know the world tells us that we should try somebody on before we commit to them for the rest of our life, but the reality is your sexual relationship will ebb and flow with life. We're human beings. We grow and change. It's not concrete. That's the beautiful thing about getting to choose to love somebody for the rest of our lives. That's the beauty of covenant relationship. Sex and marriage are not for our own personal gratification and pleasure. It's the beautiful experience of sacrificing something for somebody else that actually builds a life of fulfillment that the world ultimately doesn't tell us exists on the other side of sacrifice. Now, I know these are just a few simple reasons as to why you might want to save sex for marriage, but I hope that it's insightful and it gets you thinking about maybe why you would want to save sex if you have just thought, well, isn't it just a natural part of life? Maybe there's actually more to the equation, and I would hope that you would grow more curious and ultimately that you would come to a place where you feel concrete and confident in your decision and not pressured by the messages that society tells us about sex. You deserve to be with somebody that respects and honors the fact that you have decided to save sex for marriage, not be pressured or persuaded to do otherwise. That's your personal decision, your sex life, your virginity. Those are things that belong to you and that you are able to give to somebody else. Nobody simply deserves that just because. So ladies, gentlemen, I hope this video was insightful. If it was, would you let me know in the comments below? Would you give this video a little like? And if you want more videos like this, then I just encourage you to click subscribe. And I hope you have a beautiful rest of your week. We will talk very soon.